So I'm Mark Cross. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Measuring Success. We've been working on this project for you. It's been an exciting and challenging project. It is actually a very complicated survey. We've done thousands of surveys. We mostly do surveys with organizations to individuals, and in this survey where we're surveying independent school officers, business officers, there was a tremendous volume of questions, and when you do the math about the number of questions across the number of schools, across 2 states, across all of the variables that go into those questions, there's over 1 million formulas that go into this. So it's been very complicated. We've learned a lot. I know you guys have learned a lot. I know there's been challenges. I apologize for the challenges, but we've been taking notes on those challenges. We fixed many of them. And we, in fact, are prepared to make this a much smoother process for next year. So we do want your feedback. If you've got specific issues that you've run into, we want to document those, and that goes into us being able to fix them next year. So we do want you to mention them, but we did want to go into this up front knowing that we know that, and thank you for your support as we've worked our way through this. So the agenda for today, real quick, we're going to do a quick introduction about Measuring Success and what we do. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy and Iram, who are going to actually walk through both surveys, and then we're going to take some time for questions. So Measuring Success, we were founded in 2003. We've got around 20 people. We've got offices in Washington, Chicago, LA currently. And we have about 20 people. We've serviced, in the 13 years we've been around, over 1,100 clients. Over half of them have been independent schools. And what we try to do is use data to help organizations achieve their mission. And so we support nothing but nonprofits. That's part of our mission statement. Everybody who works for us, when I first got to Measuring Success 6 months ago, said, the reason I'm at Measuring Success is because I don't need to help corporations make money. I want to help nonprofits achieve their mission. And so that's why we're here. And I think independent schools, educating our children, is an important mission. And so when you look at the kinds of problems independent schools have, with enrollment problems, fundraising problems, knowing what kinds of programs are going to have the biggest impact across their students, the best way to make those decisions is by using data, not guessing at it. And so that's really what we try to do, is use data to help organizations understand what they're trying to achieve, what their members, their students, their alumni, their people that are involved in the organization, stakeholders, look across all that data and understand what people really need and what kinds of programs can be put in place that are going to have the biggest impact. If you look at, like I said, we've supported over 550 independent schools since 2003. Culver Military Academy is an organization that we're helping them with their alumni, to understand their alumni and how their alumni have engaged with the school, how they feel about the school, what could the school do to support them better, and also helping with fundraising. If you look at some of these other schools, we're trying to help them with enrollment. There's declining enrollment across many of our clients. And so they're trying to understand why people are leaving, why would they stay, if someone's in a different private school or in a public school, what would cause them to come. And we do a lot of survey work and analyze that data to help those organizations reach out to people with the kinds of messages that would have the biggest impact in terms of getting them to an open house, as an example. We do work with one organization where we help them do Facebook ad buys, and they're targeted Facebook ad buys where they are able to do an ad buy across a very specific group of people in terms of age, income types, knowing when you find variables that match up to people who have specific reasons why they would come to a school or not to a school, to be able to target an audience on an ad book face buy to try and get them to show up at an open house. And getting them to an open house actually has a lot of impact, is where you can actually reach out and use that personal touch to try and get people to sign up for the school. If you look at the kind of data we use, we've been collecting data since 2003, and we have thousands of pieces of data that we're able to deploy to help organizations understand how they compare to others, and knowing what data is most impactful in terms of helping organizations make decisions. And at the end of the day, it's when you collect that data, you've got to be able to figure out how to analyze it, and that's really where our expertise is. And once you collect the data, so the survey part is very tactical, but once you collect that data and combine it with the other data that we have at our availability to be able to understand it and run the analytics against it and look at the reports and be able to visualize it, it becomes very clear what's going on within an organization that can help them make improvements, or going on among families to help understand why they're leaving or why they would come to your school, and be able to put programs in place to improve enrollment and across alumni in terms of improving fundraising. So that's the bottom line for us. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy so she can talk about the project, and then we can get going into the survey itself.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. We are very excited to be here. We have put in a lot of hard work into this project, and we're just really excited to be here with you today. I know that this survey has been going on for a while, but for measuring success, this is our first year working on it, and we hope, I think, yeah, so. This survey was administered jointly with PAISBOA, the California Independent School Business Officers Association, as well as PAISBOA. So PAISBOA, we got 76 responses. Last year there were 78 schools, so we're pretty much right on track compared to last year. Most schools took both the salary and general survey, but there were a few schools that only took one or the other. And next year, one thing we're really hoping to do is raise that response rate. It's about 50% now overall, but I think we can definitely get it higher for next year. And we need all of you to sort of be voices to fellow schools and let them know that they should definitely jump in to take the survey. We operate on an idea of constant improvement. So this year we were really focused on developing the survey tool, working out any glitches that arose, and trying to deliver on the same reporting functionalities as were delivered in years past. But next year, there's a few items we already know we want to change for next year in the survey tool as well as in the reports. And then we're also going to look to you for feedback on what does need to be changed. There's a website where you can actually go online and enter any feedback you have for us or recommendations for next year. You can also communicate with Emily Miller or Colleen if you have any suggestions, because we're definitely open to advice. We want to make this as good as possible. And moving in future years out, we just want to have a constant loop of feedback and improvement. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Can I just get a show of hands? How many people, this is their first year taking the survey? Okay. A few. Great. And how many of you, did anyone do the early bird reports? Oh, okay, great. Well, you'll see the general survey, the final report is much more robust than the early bird report, and yeah. So the general survey, I know everybody here already took the survey, so you know what it is, but it's a wide range of in-depth analysis, financial indicators. Hopefully everything is covered that you would want to know about independent school management. All the data in the general survey is not confidential, so you can view every other school's response to every question other than admissions. This is for the general survey only, not the salary survey. And then one note is that because this was administered jointly with California, there are some questions in your reports that will appear to be blank, and that's because they were only for California, not for Pennsylvania schools. Any questions? No. So you have a separate report and your data is only Pennsylvania data that you're going to be viewing. But there will be some questions that appear as blank. And that's because none of the Pennsylvania schools took those questions.
Are there schools that are interested in California data?
I mean, there are some things that I'm interested in just from an analytical perspective, like where, you know, are there regions where operating costs are higher, salaries are higher? Those kinds of things could be really interesting just from an analytical perspective. But as far as managing a school, it sounds like you guys aren't that interested in. This is a list of topics. I'm not going to read through these because we're going to be sending out this presentation later, so you'll have access to this presentation. It's supposed to sort of be a resource for you. And the same thing, this is a set of instructions on using your reports. But again, I'm not going to read these out loud because we're doing a demo for you, and that's really the focus of the day. But you will get this report later, so make sure we have your email addresses so that you can read the instructions when you go back to work on this yourselves. And with that, I would like to introduce Aram, who's going to give us a general survey demo.
Good morning, everyone. All right. I'm going to go through the general survey, kind of give you an idea of what to expect and how to navigate through everything. Alrighty. Okay, so the first tab that you're going to come across is going to be the introduction. Here you'll find a layout of what each tab contains, as well as some instructions. So you can use this as a reference if you don't want to look at the PowerPoint back and forth. The next tab you'll come to is the admissions tab. What you'll want to do here is enter your admissions numbers. These values will populate, and these values are actually pulled into later tables and tabs. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. We'll just put in some arbitrary numbers, 250. Let's say the number of acceptances is 100, and we have 50 new students. So you see all of these percentages are auto-populated for you. As with the survey itself, we've included a confidentiality policy. You'll want to review this. It contains all of the information on what can be shared and what should not be shared with anyone outside of your school. This tab contains the list of all of the schools who've taken the general survey. In column B, we've got a list of the numbers. You can reference this column to create your peer group as well. And this information is also available in the detailed results, and we'll go to that in a second. The list of topics, it's, pretty straightforward. We've got a list of topics broken out by detailed topics, which is pulled into one of the tables. Below that, we've got, sorry for the scrolling, summary topics and ratios. And below that, we've got the yes and no questions. Next to each topic, you'll see a number. You'll want to probably print this out ahead of time before you move on to the later tabs, just so you can use it as a quick reference, because you will need to reference these numbers and input them to view the various topics. We've provided a tab with some Excel tips to kind of make your life a little easier if you want to create presentations with these charts. So there are shortcuts listed here. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Okay. The first tab that we are going to go through is the Detailed Results tab. This tab contains all of the responses for all of the schools that participated in the survey. Let's see. Way back you are. No problem. This will be an Excel workbook with the general survey. All of the schools will get the same workbook for Pennsylvania.
Okay,
So.
I know it's a completely different survey than what it was last year, but last year there were already easily formatted general charts and stuff where you would just put a number in and that's not there.
That is there. It's in the later tabs. So yes. So you'll see, I'll go through on how to populate some of those charts. Okay, so the detail results tab, it will have all of your school's information. So I'm just going to hide this for 1 second so I can scroll through. The first set of values are going to be your school's percent rank, the response, and then followed by the percentiles, the median, and the average. Starting in column Q, we've got all of the school's information. In row 2, you'll have the school numbers, and you can kind of scroll over to find your peer school or refer to the list of schools for that number. Column F, once you enter your school number in F3, we can change this. Does anyone want to volunteer their school to have their information uploaded? Sure. What's your school name? Waldron? Okay. I think you're... Oh, there we go. Your school number is 63. So we enter 63, and all of your information is populated in column F. The first set of information is going to be your identification information, and then we get to the really good stuff. Your responses are populated here, and you can kind of see your other school responses as well to the right. As you go down, as Stacy had mentioned before, we have the list of sections for you in the PowerPoint that you can reference. If the school if PAISBOA did not get asked the question, the fields will be blank, or if your school did not respond, the fields are going to be blank. So it's not an error, it's just the way that everything was set up. Does anyone have any questions about the results tab?
If that information is left blank or incorrect, how do we go about letting you know?
You can send an email to Emily, and she will compile a list, and we'll go ahead and fix everything and let you know. Yeah. Okay, moving on, we're going to go through the summaries and ratios tab. This tab is formatted much like the detail results tab, and a lot of the values are pulled from there. We calculated the change in enrollment for you, as well as some of the dollars per student values. In column B, again, we have the topic numbers that you can use to input in charts 1 and 2. Your school number is pre-populated in here once you entered in detailed results, so there's no need for that. And column F will have all of your school-specific answers. Does anyone have any questions about the ratios and summary tab? No? Okay. To the right of the percentiles and averages, we have all of the responses or the calculations for each individual school if you wanted to view that as well. The first chart that we're going to take a look at is the range chart, and this chart allows you to view your school's values compared to the range of values in general for all of the schools. Your school number is, again, pre-populated here. In cell D3, you want to either select detail or summary. Detail would allow you to pick from any of the detail topics, and the summary would allow you to pick from the summary topics. And again, that's 1 and 2. When we put in 2, you can see over here under topics, it will give you all of the allowable values. We can go to 1 just to see. Obviously, there's no topic 540, so let's pick a topic between 1 and 506. I'm going to go to 4. This is the number of square feet under your roof. We have Waldron's values here. The first chart is going to have all of the numbers, including decimal points. Then we've got the percentiles and the averages for all of the schools combined, not including Waldron. Below that, we've got the chart data table, in case you just wanted to see the values itself. The N below that is all of the schools, the count of the schools that actually answered this question.
Can you scroll back up?
Sure. Which section would you like to? Okay. Sure. I'm going to refer to the list of topics. Does Waldron have a kindergarten full day? Okay, so we'll look at topic 19. All right. So now we don't have values for the 10th and 25th percentile, but we do have the median, 75th, 90th, and the overall average. All right, let's pick another later topic. We can look at 263, which is the endowment market value. All right. Again, we have Waldron's response here, and then the median through the average below, or following. To the right of the chart, we've got segments listed for you, 17 different ways that you can actually cut this data. The first segment is all schools, and we can cut that by day schools less than 250, which is segment 4, and the charts are auto-populated with that information. So it's much like the previous reports that you've had. Are there any questions? Is there anything that anybody would like to see on this chart? No? Okay. Moving on to the peer chart. The peer chart allows you to search on any of the detailed results topics or the summary and ratio topics, comparing to up to 15 of your peer schools. Below the first chart, you can enter the peer schools that you want to look at. So I'm just going to enter in some numbers here, and all of their data is going to show up in the chart. Again, you can segment this information by choosing either a detail topic or a summary and ratios topic. Is there anything that anybody would like to see the peer comparison for? No? Okay, well, let's pick the previous topic. Everything auto-populates, so anyone who's actually answered that question within your peer group, they'll have their data displayed. Okay, and once you've actually put in your peer schools, this information is transferred throughout the later tables that display the peer information. If you want to view only the first 2 schools, you can go ahead and hide this, and then it'll make your charts a little bit prettier and easier to read. Okay. The next chart is the tuition chart. This is actually a peer chart as well, and it allows you to compare your school's tuition and fees and charges to your peer group. You can break this down by whether it's a day school or whether it's a boarding school. We're going to leave it at the day school. And right now we can view the tuition chart for the 7 peer schools plus Waldron. You can change this to tuition and fees. This is a question that I think is just California, so it's not going to show. You probably want to just stick to one then. Again, if you want to make this chart a little more user-friendly and readable, and you want to use it in a PowerPoint, you can just go ahead and hide the schools that you don't want to display. And now you've got just the peer schools left. All right, does anyone have any questions about the tuition chart? No? Okay. Chart 4 is the faculty salary range chart. You can look at your school's range of faculty salaries compared to the general school results. So this will be for all schools. Waldron's school number is pre-populated. You want to select either whether you want to view the average or the median. Right now it's set at average. They change very slightly if you choose median. We can take a look. So the only thing that's really going to change is this little red dot and where it is. This information can be broken out by segment as well. Right now, we're on all day schools, but let's see, we can pick one of the ones with tuition less than 20,000, which is segment 14, and everything auto-populates for you. The values are located right underneath the chart here. Does anyone have any questions, or is there anything that they would like to see in the faculty salaries range chart? Again, this is for all of the schools in the survey. The next chart that we're going to view will be the same chart as faculty salaries, but it displays your peer group salary ranges. The only thing that you really need to do here is pick either whether you want to view the average or the median. We're going to go back to average. The chart will first start with your school and then all of the peer schools following, and at the very end of the chart we'll have the group average. As stated before, your peer schools are brought in from the previous chart, so if we want to display just the first two, we can go ahead and hide that, and now we've got a prettier chart. You can resize the chart if you want to pull it into a PowerPoint or use a snippet.
So it looks like the averages, including zeros for those schools that aren't there, and this is distorted as a result.
Right, some people actually put in zeros rather than leaving it blank, so that's going to,
So shouldn't the calculation
Yeah.
of the average exclude the zeros? Otherwise you get this distorted
Right.
data.
we can go ahead and clean that up before we send the final reports to you guys. Again, wanted to just display or demonstrate how to use these charts that are still in the works. Yeah.
That is something.
Yeah,
that-
yeah, that's definitely something that we can fix. So if anything kind of jumps out at you guys that needs to be addressed by us, then sure.
Does the average include the topic school?
No, it'll be just the peer group. So if anybody has anything that stands out to them that needs to be addressed, please send Emily an email. She'll compile a list and we'll get to it before you guys receive the final charts. Does anyone have any questions about the faculty salaries peer chart? No? Okay. The final chart that we're going to go over is the yes-no chart. This is going to display all of the percentages for the yes-no questions. With this one, as mentioned before, some of these questions, we have the topics listed in columns Q with their corresponding number in column B. Some of these questions are specific to Pennsylvania only, and some of them are California only. A lot of them are going to be pretty obvious, but if the chart shows a blank, that's just a California question only. We can kind of play around with this a little bit. Is there a yes/no topic that anyone would like to view? Okay, I'll pick one. Let's find out how many people are members of, or have the PAIS accreditation. That is topic 7. All right, so we have about 68%, and 65 schools responded to this question. We can break this number down by different segments as well. So for this one, let's look at segment 7, which is day schools with children having more than 600 students. 7. You see the end value drops. We've got 12 schools that responded to this, and 91% of those 12 have this accreditation. Sure.
This question may be more for the data team. The breakdown in terms of number of students, less than 250, 250 to 399, is different from what I know NAIS uses. Why did we go with this? I guess is the question. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I'm just curious.
This is what was used last year, so we stuck with that breakdown. Does anyone else have any more questions? You can look at one more segment here, day schools with grades pre-K to 5 or 6. That's 8. We have 2 responses to this one. Both of them said yes, that they do have this accreditation. All right, that brings us to the end of the demo. I am open for questions if anyone has them, or if they would like to see anything specific, we can go over that as well. No? Okay.
Is there any topics anybody else wants to address either about the process? Like, this might be a good opportunity for us to get feedback. If anybody has feedback process issues, things that were frustrating, glitches, questions about the survey, questions about the reports, how you're going to get the reports, when you're going to get the reports. So,
November 9th, in your emails.
right, so I know that there were issues with some things ending up in spam folders. So, be aware of that, I guess. Yes, sir.
Could you review some of the questions that came your way from the group?
Sure.
Relative to issues that we introduced rather than test study?
Yeah.
We haven't.
Oh, you went, okay. Do the salary one next? Okay. All right, we still have the salary piece to get through. I kind of wanted to focus on the general survey part right now, and then
So you said that some people had their things stuck in spam?
when the survey link was sent out, sometimes they end up in a spam folder, and then
Could you tell us what email address we should be expecting these results in so that we can whitelist it?
It's boa@measuring-success.com.
right. So the domain is
Distribute what you should add to your, and I'll have Emily maybe post it to us, but it's boa@measuring-success.com. And if for any reason you don't receive your emails on November 9th, just email Emily and we'll get in touch with you, figure out why they either went to spam or bounced. We'll get a notification if it bounces. If it does go to spam, just let us know. Check your spam folders first. And I'll find a new way to get it to you. There's a lot of different options if they bounce.
As far as the general survey goes, is there anything unexpected here? Does everybody feel comfortable with Excel such that they can work it properly?
My comment is, this looks very similar actually to last year and previous years. Were there any changes made that I'm not noticing?
Well, I think the main change is that your previous company that did this for you went away. So, and we didn't get the opportunity, the benefit of using what they had. It had to be recreated from scratch. So, unfortunately, it was a lot of work to recreate it. But there was a big conversation around, what should this be? And the general consensus, as I understood it, was that people liked what they were getting and wanted the consistency of it moving forward.
I mean, it looks great. It seems very comfortable. And that obviously if people go in here and do what I need to do.
Okay, good. And it's a continually improving process. So in the first year, it was a tremendous amount of work to get this, and then we're going to learn what we've learned, and we're going to get feedback, and then next year make it better, and we've got, hopefully for many years, continue to make it better.
I think that in terms of a user using the survey, it was pretty easy to enter the data and understand that. It would have been helpful, and I know in our previous years, we had more, besides the printing issue, we had more explicit instructions about what to include in each of the categories. And honestly, when you only do it once a year, I don't remember what I included last time versus this time. And I'm even more concerned that what I put in may not be the same as what everybody else put in. So I am concerned about not having the same level of comparisons because there weren't any definitions about,
When you went in taking the survey or in the report?
in the survey, when you talk about faculty, who are you including? Or, the definition of what that question is supposed to mean. And I think in prior years, we had much more explicit instructions that you need to include where.
So we actually took, from the previous survey, we tried to take all the instructions and include those. And then we also created an FAQ site. I don't know how many people actually went to it, but we did try to include an FAQ site to answer specific questions. And where people could post if they had a specific question, like should we include so-and-so or so-and-so. So I encourage everyone, that site is going to continue over the next few years so that everybody, it'll be a resource going forward. And any questions you include this year, we'll include in the FAQ site next year. And then if you have any questions, so please enter them on the website or reach out to Emily.
The feedback I'm going to give is that when you're doing the survey, I'm not going to go someplace else. So there was a way that there was on that thing a little button or something that would show us that, hey, these are the things that we should be including so that we don't have to go someplace else.
Yeah. So it's very easy for us to program in any of the instructions that would be helpful to the schools to make it a little easier to fill out. We just need sort of feedback on what's not clear so that we know what has to be clarified.
It's just a comment that was tagged in the input field that would give a description of what was expected in that cell.
Are you talking about the equivalent of what the Basel survey has with the scroll and pop-up function? If you're looking for the definition or the input described, that you simply scroll over the topic and it'll pop that up.
Yes, similar to this. It made it, this was like Excel based, so the way it was in the past, there was an input cell that was expecting a response from you, and then over the input cell was a comment. And
Sure.
in the comment field, it gave a description of what that cell was really asking for.
And it was almost in every cell.
Yes.
So
So, do you capture that?
Yeah, so definitely, it's really easy to program the survey to include any of those comments, so we just need to sort of know what needs to be further clarified, and that's something that I'll work on with Emily and the rest of the survey team, just to make sure that every question is hopefully as clear as possible and everybody's answered in a consistent way.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
I just want to say that I noticed in the endowment area, particularly, there are actually more comments than I remember the last time. And usually the extra directions, so we get a term that you're already saying, but the comments, the rest of the
Yeah, we tried to, where we thought there would be an issue, we tried to include it, but obviously it's a long survey, as everybody knows, so wherever we need to further clarify, we can certainly add that in.
Yeah, it's a new tool that did the survey. It's actually the most sophisticated online cloud-based survey tool that there is. The normal survey tool that we use for most of our surveys, and we've done thousands of them, couldn't accommodate this particular survey, not just because of the volume, which does cause problems for a lot of these survey companies, but the piping in of previous year's data so you can see what you put last year across that many questions was a challenge for most of these companies. And so we did a lot of research and a lot of work around how to make sure that that happened.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, this is the top of the line survey tool, and now that we've gone through the first year, we've identified, I think, most things that we're going to want to change for next year. Most of the glitches, I think we've unearthed at this point. And we have a pretty good list of things to change for next year, but if you do have specific feedback, please make sure Emily knows, because we're in constant communication to make sure we address everything for next year.
Perfect. All right. And, sorry.
Just to clarify, so the results are going to be sent in the form of an Excel file?
Yes.
So it seems, and maybe somebody knows the evolution, but I think, probably Jim, we had a few years ago, we kind of used this model, but then we switched to cloud-based results as well when we log in, run reports on a portal, I guess. Is there any reason why we kind of reverted back to a few years ago?
Is Emily in here? Do you want to address that, or do you want me to address that? I'm not sure if I want to make sure I get the story correct.
May I address that?
Sure.
I'm trying to be under the radar. Hi, Jim. Jim. First of all, it's wonderful seeing somebody else talk about this because, as starting with Brad Cates about 5 or 6 years ago, we started working this. As you say, there's constant improvement. It's every year there's evolution, and I can see some things here. Let me start off about. I guess I started doing the spreadsheet, developing it for PAISBOA and PAISBOA, and basically what you're seeing here is returning to the spreadsheet of 2 years ago. There's some tweaks. The layout and the format's neater than I used to do, but you're basically seeing a familiar tool here, as they say. They're getting to know it, and it's a hairy exercise in Excel. I don't know what other you're doing. A couple years ago, a couple of business managers here at PAISBOA brought Bill Rawlings and me together from School Office Services. And School Office Services was doing a lot of work for PAISBOA and CALISBOA. And we hit it off, and really Bill had sort of a vision to try and expand School Office Services to include the survey business and do schools that way. And he brought me on board to kind of see if we could take the ideas here in Excel and put them in the cloud and use that firm's Oracle database. Well, we tried for a couple years. During that time, Bill unfortunately died of prostate cancer, and it was a great loss to the independent school world, and I lost a lot of sort of fun and an ally, obviously, within the corporation, and frankly, last year we got it online, but we just found that the Oracle product was really not very good in many ways. It was rigid, it was inflexible, it took forever to program things, and I don't know if it was my programmers that I was working with and out of the country or the programming issue, but basically, a number of things happened. I know last spring I sort of advised the head of School Office Services that I don't think the survey business is going anywhere. We're not quick enough. We're not flexible enough. We're not delivering good products. We're doing surveys for NBOA, and so by about September or so, he saw the light and he said, "Okay, we'll keep doing for current clients what we're doing right now, but Jim, you don't have a job anymore." So anyway, I'm a free agent. Actually, I'm doing a lot of work right now at McDonough School outside of Baltimore. They're having some transition. I'm going down there every week and sort of mentoring. And I'm working for some other schools, and I work with schools in East Asia. And actually, it's sort of a relief. I've been really hitting my head hard with the survey business now for the last 3 or 4 years, almost as a full-time job. It's nice to have a rest from it. Let's see someone else have some of the work. But anyway, in terms of the previous question, how do you decide what the school size segments are? Basically, that was a way of making sure that each segment had a number of schools to compare itself to. So if there are going to be 4 segments, you tried to divide it so that there were about 25 schools or 20 schools in each segment. You didn't want a segment with only 3 or 4 schools in it. That's why, for example, at NEIS, you may have a segment that has more than 1,200 students. But and I know that NBOA surveys have that, but you don't have enough here in the data set to make that a meaningful group. So usually it's just based on what's the present population, and so that anyway, that's kind of a nutshell. Frank, Bob, whoever you are, I haven't been down here for a while.
I think part of the question was, trying to read somebody else's mind, is the input for the data is still through some web-based database engines, right? It's just that Excel is being used as the output device.
Yeah, so
I think when you were originally working on this, it was one massive Excel spreadsheet we all entered into, and then we got it back after it had been processed.
Yes.
But I think what people need to see is that the Excel is now your delivery and manipulation tool as opposed to the input.
yeah, but part of it is cost. So we went into this thinking potentially we could use cloud-based, and we could not find a cloud-based tool that could accommodate the requirements that it took to build these reports that was less than the cost of this contract, much less the labor that goes into programming it. So it's expensive to do that based on the complexity of what this is trying to accomplish. And we put a lot of time into researching tools, and we tried to find something cost-effective that where we thought we could do this, and we could not find anything that we felt was going to work. And then we also sort of was what do people want? And there were a lot of people that are very comfortable with Excel and preferred Excel. So we thought to ourselves, well, if a lot of people prefer Excel, and it's very, very expensive to do a cloud-based tool, let's go with Excel. So.
And there was a bit of a timing issue, too. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody was really anxious to get and needs this information by early November, and this was the most efficient way to get it to everyone in that time.
Anyway, thank you all for putting up with us the last couple of years with the Oracle product. Actually, it could do some wonderful things. The other problem was it was really slow. I mean, if you said, I want a school that's below 300 students, and I want to look at their boarding program, and I want to look at a tuition. In other words, you took 3 or 4 of these filters at the same time. You get that answer, but it might take you a couple minutes. So if you can do that in the future, all power to you. That's the next challenge, I think.
I mean, in an ideal world, it would be that way. It's just expensive. So.
I was going to say,
Yeah. So the next survey.
yeah.
I'm sorry, is there any more questions? All right.
Salary survey. 39 administrative positions, 38 staff positions. This survey is different from the general survey in that all data is considered confidential. So while the general survey, everybody will receive the same report, this one you'll receive an individual report. And here you have the exact same questions as California. So if something is blank, it's because not enough schools answered it, or your school didn't answer it. It's not because the entire PAISBOA cohort did not answer it. Again, here's your list of topics. Regarding normalization of salaries, in order to be consistent among schools, we have everybody reporting not just the base salary, but then whether the position is a full-time position or not, as well as if it's a full year or academic year position. Everything in the survey reports is being reported, has been normalized to be 100% and full year. So that means that if you entered, say, 100,000 for a position and 100% FTE, and 50,000 for a position and 50% FTE, in your report, both of them will appear as 100,000. Does that make sense to everyone? And there are more detailed calculations, especially for the staff positions, where we also factored in whether they're a full or academic year. We have an information sheet that we'll be distributing if anybody is curious about the calculations. But really what you need to know for today is just everything is already normalized in the reports. Again, we have your list of instructions, but since we're doing a demo, we're not going to spend too much time on this. We're just going to send you this later so you have it as a reference. Any questions before I start? Go ahead.
For the salary survey, if we wanted 5 schools, as long as 5 of them reported data, we would go to 10 and he would provide us. Is that the same? Is that also going to happen?
I don't think, is that something we can talk about?
We have to discuss it later.
I mean, well, we can discuss it. I wasn't aware that was something, and so I'm hypersensitive to, I don't know what the parameters are in terms of what's allowed to be shared or not. So, I mean, we can discuss that.
So this is your introduction tab. Basically, it just lists the tab and what data is on every tab, so it's easy to find. Data form admin. So this is a sample salary survey. In real life, when you receive your report, all of these will be the actual salaries of your positions. I just entered the same thing for every position. Additionally, no school has all of the identical positions, so some of these will be blank when you receive your reports. But here I just filled everything in the same to make it easy for demonstration purposes.
Anybody wants to volunteer?
Same thing here with
On prior surveys, there was a place to put a note in because some of our positions, like we might not have, I'm making it up, a registrar position, but a registrar is combined with some other position, and we were able to put that note in so that we, could understand how things were identified. If you're looking for feedback.
Yeah, again, that can be something we document for next year. Salary survey, again, this is your school's information when you receive your report. Here it's sample data, so it's not real, and everything is filled in. One thing to note about the staff salary, we ask people to report either a salary or an hourly for every single position. In previous years, this is one change. In previous years, whatever the maximum number of schools the highest percentage of schools reported, if they reported as a salary, for that position we reported it, it was previously reported as a salary, and if most schools reported as an hourly, it was reported hourly. Here we just did it both ways and are giving you both sets of information. Not knocking you, Jim. So that's an important difference from previous years. Here's your list of positions, just for easy access. Admin salaries. What we have here is for every given position, the list of the salary by every single segment. Here's where it'll populate your results. Again, I just entered the same thing for every position. So on this file, everything appears as 100,000. Number of schools reporting. As you can see here, there's a number 4. Less than 4 schools with boarding reported a head of school salary, which is why this is blank. Same thing down here. Any questions? All of these are links actually to the area and the survey. So head of school, when you click on head of school, it brings you straight down to that position. Now we have the same thing for staff salaries. So again, this is salaries only. We have a separate tab now for wages. It pulls in your data into column E, and then we show every position by segment. Here's the same information, but for hourly. And again, you're able to click on your link to go down straight to that section. This works very similarly to the general survey. In cell D5, you can choose either administrative or staff positions, whichever you'd like to view. Right now, we're set to administrative positions. Position number 1, which is head of school, and whichever segment you'd like to view. Your school's data will appear in the first column of the chart. I just want to point out again that this is not real data, but for this sample school, this is where they would have been. And again, you can choose, if you want to view staff positions, you can put in staff positions. Now we have administrative assistant to head of school. You can choose a different position. And then you can view by segment. Fewer than 5 results, so it's not appearing. We can choose a different segment. So this is for day schools only, and this is how the results changed. Are there any questions on how to use this chart? No, because this is confidential. And so we can't have the actual data in there to select specific individual schools.
Rather than just select individual schools, for example, I went to compare my school with other similar schools like
So we have that as one of our segments. If you just turn to the right, K through 8 is segment number 9. And now we have all of our data in our chart.
Would it be possible to create a segment that is some group of 7 or 8 peer schools, so we don't see individual school data, but the average of the peer schools?
Yes, that's possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Can I talk about that?
Sure.
I mean, not only is individual person's salary kind of personal and negotiated, and schools want it to be confidential, or else they wouldn't share the data. It's also very wise under current American law regulations to not share individual salaries. With teachers, you're not really looking at a person. You're just looking at your scale, and then that's okay. But with individuals, anyway, the Department of Labor and the FTC have said that sharing of association salary data can have a good purpose. It can help efficiency, it can help best practices, but you have to be careful because it can also be price fixing. And they've set out guidelines in the health industry that many years ago that really the FTC and the DOL are using, and that if your association abides by the 3 or 4 rules that they set, you will be in a safe harbor. And for years, I've taken the position that any association that I work for my personal liability, for probably measuring success for your association, you want that. If you can get a safe harbor, you jump to it. But among other things is you will not share the individual salaries of other members of the association. You will aggregate data only, so you can look at medians, you can look at percentiles, you can look at averages. That's okay, and you would not look at any group of schools, even in aggregation, when there are fewer than 5 in the group. And so that's actually in the federal reg, in the regs. The problem with letting a school sort of say, I want to look at these 8 schools, is that they can do the search within it. And by the way, if it's in an Excel spreadsheet, the data is going to be somewhere, even if it's hidden. So if you say, I want those 8 schools, then you've got to hide it somewhere in the Excel data, in the spreadsheet, and someone's going to find it. So you're not going to do that. But NEIS got into the trouble with this about 15 years ago, when they had something where online you could search 8 schools, you pick your schools, and then a clever person came in and said, okay, now I want to pick a 9th school. And you had the same group, you added 1 more school, and you could determine that school's exact salaries by the difference in the average. Anyway, it's clever, but it doesn't take a lot of people a long time to figure that out. So NEIS had to get rid of that feature very, very quickly. So anyway, this is it's a tricky topic, but you would be well to abide by the rules. You don't have to, but you want to minimize risk when you can. Yes.
But I think the way that it was handled was last year, we gave you, the keeper of the data, my 8 or 9 schools, and you could sort of report for me.
Yeah, I'll talk to measuring. That's right. As a feature of this, unfortunately, when Bill Rawlings was trying to sell his services at a meeting like this, both in Philadelphia and in California, they said, we used to look at each individual salaries. Now we want something like that where we can pick our schools. And Bill said, Jim will do that. We'll do that somehow. So we did have a custom salary report that I did on spreadsheet. But as I did it, I had to make sure that the group 1 and the group 2 that the schools did had at least 5 schools different than each other, because sometimes they didn't do that. So it was tricky, and I had to sort of do that manually. I never got the opportunity to see if a computer could figure that out itself. But we're going to, yeah.
If this idea builds on measuring the success of us all asking for custom groups, maybe there's other different segments, like urban, suburban, rural, or other things that we can agree upon, it would be subsets, because clearly what we have here is not enough for us to define our peer schools. But maybe we could define our peer schools in another way, it's not.
If there was a way to standardize segments that we could build that
Robert?
if there's a way to build, to request segments that we can put into this so that you've got segments that satisfy everybody, that's probably the approach to do moving forward. The problem is, for custom stuff, it's extra work that's out of scope. We've actually gone 4 times over our hours just to do this. So we're happy to talk about something if someone really needs it, but we have to talk about how we work that arrangement out. But I do think moving forward, creating segments that everybody would find valuable and increasing the number of segments in the future is something we can talk about for next year.
Yeah, I'm amazed Measuring Success has figured out all these formulas. It took me about 5 years to figure them out, and I was still working on them, but they've obviously done a great job.
Literally, there's a million formulas in this. Yeah, you might be right. That was like off the top of my head calculation.
I had to defend why it was so many hours to mark repeatedly.
I mean, I have to say, for me, the biggest value of these surveys are the faculty salary comparisons and these administrative salaries. I mean, sure, other things are too, but that's probably the biggest key that my board cares about. It's important enough that I hope that we continue this discussion for this year. I understand that you've worked over the hours and all that stuff, but I will tell you, and I'm only speaking for me and my school, this data is important enough that it would be difficult for me to share the data without having that. And I'm just speaking for me.
Okay.
Make a request to Emily, and if we aggregate the requests, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, Emily and I are in very frequent communication, and we're going to continue discussing this as we go forward. But we've definitely heard you and documented your requests. Moving forward, these are the yes/no tabs. Going forward, they're a lot sort of simpler to use. We have every position listed, the percent of schools reporting yes, percent of schools reporting no, and total number of schools reporting. For this tab in particular, the deferred compensation tab, if the school answered yes and filled in a deferred compensation, we've also calculated the percentiles, average, and number of schools that reported.
How is the average so much higher than the first one?
My guess is there could be an outlier in there that's just driving those results way up. That's my immediate guess without looking. I mean, we can dig into the data further. We can see if maybe somebody entered an extra 0 or made a mistake, but my immediate guess is just that there was an outlier in there.
How is the 10th percent? Is the 10th percentile higher than the 25th percentile?
That is a mistake. We'll take care of that.
I was a little late, so you may have said this, but was there some scrubbing, so if someone said their head of the school made $100 a year, that was?
Yeah, we went through actually, well, there were a few things we did to prevent that from happening. The first is we put in validation, which I'm sure all of you encountered at some point throughout the survey. And sometimes it was helping you maybe not enter an extra 0, but other times maybe you really did want to enter that result. So for example, or just specifically, we took all of last year's results, calculated a band for each individual question that we wanted to accept. Then we expanded that band, I think by about, I forget the percentage we used, maybe 20% on either end, to expand that band. But there are still outliers for most positions. So a lot of people had to write in to say, oh, I need to enter this data, and it really is correct. It's not a problem. And then we would change the validation. So we'll have to do that again next year based on the current year data, with the updated validation based on the current data. But then additionally, after we received the data, I went through, because there were some, people that said they were making, $5 million a year. And I went through and I reached out to the individual schools to say, what did you really mean here? And tried to figure it out on a one-off basis. But the truth is the data actually was fairly clean. Although the validation might have been annoying, it worked. For the most part, you could see their real salaries. There are a few positions that are especially weird what you start seeing. I think the director of summer studies stipend position in particular, those values are all over the place, and I think that was on purpose. I think that was correct. But for the most part, I could just look at the data and see where there were outliers and whether or not I needed to contact a school individually.
So I did want to make one point, and we might have gotten to this later, but there are over 1 million cells in this, and we are doing quality checking, and so we automated a lot of it, so we're confident that it's highly correct, but it's not out of the question that mistakes could have been made. We did do QA, we spot checked a large number of the cells, but it's not possible to spot check all 1 million cells. Our error rate, we believe, is something like 0.31 of 1%. So, having a third of 1%, like 0.3 error rate is a really good error rate, but on 1 million cells means there's going to be some errors in here. So if you come across a cell that doesn't look right, please report it, and we'll check it and fix it.
What kind of designs do you have? Nothing like director of HR, they're above the minimum requirement?
Above the
The
minimum.
number of schools reported, why isn't there any output?
I think director of HR 100% answered no.
Oh, it's yes, no.
So that's a good example. So director of HR, 0% answered yes, 100% answered no. We had 15 responses for that question, but because there is no data, because everybody said no, there's no data in this row. But there is clearly a problem with this tab, so we'll take care of it. The next few tabs are very similar to this one, but is slightly simpler. Each of these tabs for teaching duties, housing benefit provided by school, housing stipend, car, or other benefits. We have the position in column B, the percent reporting yes in column C, percent reporting no in column D, and number of schools reporting in column E. And that is the demo for the salary survey, but does anybody have any questions? No. Okay, so we can have sort of a similar discussion. I know we already covered a lot regarding the general survey, but I think a lot of it also applied to the salary survey. But if anybody has something specific to the salary survey that they wanted to raise, I know one item I heard that we're going to fix for next year is it was a little bit harder to navigate in the salary survey because the blocks of questions were so long, so we'll divide that up a little bit better next year. But if there's any other feedback maybe on the salary survey.
Just a general question. As you get input from PAISBOA and enhancements or whatever changes for next year, can you then also get the same input or feedback from California and come up with one final product?
Yes, though I will say the feedback is fairly it's the same feedback, and anywhere where I do find a discrepancy, I've gone back to Martha and Emily to talk about how we're going to do it this year. So I've had a lot of communication with Martha and Emily over the past few months, and there have been a few discrepancies. In particular, were the question lists, where I know that California had a lot more questions than PAISBOA, and PAISBOA did have a much longer survey this year because they added a lot of the California questions. But then as far as functionality and the process, I think the feedback has been fairly standard across the board. I don't think there will be a lot of differences in that sense between California and Pennsylvania, but anything that comes up we'll definitely bring as a group discussion. Any other questions? All right, well, I just want to say, first of all, a big thank you to Emily. We put in a lot of hard work, but Emily and Colleen and the whole survey team actually really did put on a ton of work also. Really a lot of work went into the survey. And then I know that it's a lot of work for schools to fill out. It takes a lot of time. It's a long survey. It's a detailed survey, but hopefully everybody gets a really big benefit from it, which is why we've all taken the time to spend hours entering data and now showing up at this meeting in person. So big thank you to all of the schools. For the full list of participating schools, we have the list again in this presentation, which you'll be receiving. There's a G for if a school completed general, S for salary, both if the school completed both. And that concludes our presentation, but we will be sticking around for a few more minutes just if anybody wants to come speak to us one-on-one or ask any school-specific questions later.
I'd just like to have kind of a general discussion. I know that we have this is probably the wrong audience to have this discussion with, but our participation is way below California. And we, despite all of our efforts and all of the emails and the phone calls and the board members calling and in particular, the early bird. I mean, I think we had a total of 12 schools complete the early bird, and and our participation rate for the full survey was not as good as I hoped. And we are paying for half of the survey with California. Can we sort of have like a general discussion about how we can increase the number of participants? Because it's only